Tes Zayin, Mishnah Zayin. Says the Mishnah, Koifin ka'ara al gabe haneh b'shvil shelo sechoiz b'koira. You're allowed to take a bowl and place it on top of a lamp upside down, b'shvil shelo sechoiz b'koira, that it shouldn't shouldn't set fire to the ceiling, to the beam on the ceiling. And we're talking about a room which has a very low ceiling, and you've got a table or something, and you've got a lamp on a table, and we're worried that the lamp is going to set fire to the beam on this low ceiling. So says the Mishnah, you can take a bowl and you can invert it and place it over the lamp on Shabbos. Now an interesting observation is made by the Bar Tanura. The Bar Tanura says as follows, Koifin ka'ora shel cheres al gabi haneh. You're allowed to take this earthenware bowl, or bilvad shelo yichabes, so long as you don't actually extinguish it directly. Of course one can't do that. Even though you're taking this bowl for the benefit of the beam, which is eina niteles b'Shabbos, which cannot be moved, you can't touch or move that beam on Shabbos. The Gemara asks a question on it. You're only allowed on Shabbos in Hilchos Muktzah, which Mishnah will discuss in more detail in the next parak. But if you're only allowed to move a keli for the benefit of something else which itself can be moved. But if the other item is an eina nitl, is not able to be moved, then you shouldn't move the first one. So how on earth could you move this bowl in order to place it over the lamp, the beam, which is eina nitl, which cannot be moved? So V'shonila, says the Bar Tanura, we answer, but tzorich limkoimai shel kli, t'shari l'tatel tzorich makoimai. I.e., we're talking about a specific case where the keli, the bowl which I move, I actually need the place where that keli is. So for example, I've got a lamp burning there and I'm just worried about the low ceiling. Good, but I can't do anything about it because I'm not allowed to take a bowl and place it over the lamp. However, if I see a lamp, say for example on my stender here, and I need the place for the stender, the mokum of the stender, and therefore I'm allowed to move the keli which happens to be on the stender, and then since it's now in my hands, I'm allowed to place it over there. That's how we resolve that problem. So that's koifin ka'ar al gabi haneh b'shvil shelo sechos b'koira. Continues the Mishnah. Va'al tsoya shel koton, it's also a mutter to move a bowl, to invert a bowl. Now, the simple reading of the Mishnah means al tsoya shel koton, to place it over the tsoya, the excrement, the feces of a child, so that one shouldn't step in it to become dirty. That doesn't sound right. And the Gemara, the Mefarshim explain that that's not the meaning. Because the implication is that you're allowed to place the bowl over the tsoya shel koton, but you can't actually move the tsoya shel koton. Because what we're allowed to do is place the bowl over it. But that's not correct, because the tsoya shel koton has the din of a graf shel rei. Presumably we're talking about a place where people are walking, and therefore it's mutter to move a graf shel rei, which means something which is despicable and unpleasant, disgusting, you're allowed to move it. So therefore the Mefarshim changed the explanation, rather it means as follows. It means we're talking about the tsoya of tarnagolin, of chickens. And we're not talking about in a place where regular people frequent, because otherwise it would be a graf shel rei also, and you could move it. But rather we're talking about in an ashpo, in a rubbish heap, in a trash heap, and the kids would run around and play there, and the parents are worried that the kid is going to be become soiled and dirty by stepping or falling or moving into the actual tsoya of a tarnagolin. So therefore, it's not referring to the tsoya shel koton, but rather you read it, va'al tsoya, brackets of a chicken, shel koton, because of a koton, we're worried he might dirty himself over there. That's how the Mefarshim explain that phrase of the Mishnah about tsoya shel koton. Continues the Mishnah, va'al akrov shelo sishach, you're allowed to cover up, take a bowl, invert it and place it over a scorpion, shelo sishach, to prevent it from biting. Now the problem is, of course, I understand that there's muktzah issues, etc., which we've dealt with, but what about Seder? How can you take a bowl and place it over a scorpion and trap it on Shabbos? What about the melacha of Seder? So the Mefarshim explain that either we're referring to a scorpion whose sting is life-threatening, and therefore you're of course allowed to cover it over on Shabbos, or we're talking about an akrov, as we'll see soon, who's not running up, who's chasing after you. And since he's chasing after you, there are certain leniencies that you're allowed to take a bowl and invert it that it shouldn't bite you, as we'll see in a second. Continues the Mishnah. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, Maisa bolif ne Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai ba'arov. An incident happened that the question, if you like, came to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in a place called Arov, which is a town in the Galil. Incidentally, the Gemara says, and the Yerushalmi says, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai lived in this town in Arov for 18 years, and he only got asked 2 questions the whole time he was there. And he was so annoyed and frustrated that of all the time he was there in this place called Arov, that he only got asked 2 questions, that eventually he left the place, and he was critical of the people there. He said, what's going to become of you? You'll become just sort of olive pickers, olive farmers. And he was very critical of the people there because they weren't asking enough shailas. It's like the case I've heard of a Rav here in London who moved on from a certain kehillah, and a member of the kehillah asked him, why are you moving? So he said to him, because that is the first question I've been asked since I've arrived. A Rav wants to be asked questions. So the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai moved from this place called Arab because he wasn't asked enough questions. Okay, so the Mishnah says, Omer Rabbi Yehuda Ma'aseh Bolif Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai ba'Arov. This was one of the 2 questions he was asked. And he says, I'm worried that the person who took the bowl, he was over the malacha of tzeidah. He was chayav chatos. He didn't do it b'mezid, but he didn't intend to do tzeidah. But he's chayav at least chatos, carbon chatos, a sin offering. Now, this is very strange, because normally when the Mishnah or the Gemara brings a maisa, brings an incident, it's supporting the comment that's just been made. But this is a maisa lister. This is a maisa which contradicts what we've just said. We just said that koifin kar, you're allowed to take a bowl and place it over an akrov shelo sishach. And then Rabbi Yehuda brings a maisa which Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said it's also. So the Mepharshim say, the chasurim extra, if you like, you've got to redraft the Mishnah. And you've got to explain it there are different ways how to explain it. One way to explain it is that the Tanakama is talking about an akrov whose sting is life-threatening. And therefore it's acceptable, it's mutter to take a keli and be kofer the keli, to invert it and put it over the akrov. Rabbi Yehuda is reporting an incident with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that we're talking about an akrov whose sting was not life-threatening. And therefore he was upset, and therefore he said, Choshesheni mechatos. That's one way to understand it. But I think the Bar Tanura understands it a slightly different way. And he says that the Tanakam is referring to an akrov, a scorpion, who was chasing after the person. And then it's acceptable to take a keli and to sort of put it over the animal. Masha'en came, the case that came in front of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the animal wasn't chasing after him. And in that situation, there's no dispensation to take the keli and to trap the animal. So that's different ways how to explain the seemingly difficult contradiction in the Mishnah, that the Maisa contradicts the statement that happened before it. Just to conclude, there's a very interesting Bar Tanura where he brings the, if you like, la halacha, with how to deal with animals on Shabbos, animals that could cause harm. I'm not saying that halacha la Maisa one has to go ask his Rav, but just as an interesting explanation of our Mishnah. Well, the Indian Psak halacha, says the Bar Tanura at the end, those poisonous snakes or animals that certainly could kill, poisonous snakes or wild rabid dogs, you're allowed to kill them miyad, straight away, on sight, even if they're not running after you. And those animals that don't bite, don't definitely kill, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, then the rule is as follows. If they're running after you, you can kill them. And if they're not running after you, you're allowed to take a bowl and place it on top of them. Fine. Which means that if you happen to, so if they're not necessarily 100% going to injure or to kill, then if they're running after you, you're allowed to kill them. If they're not running after you, you can take the keli and put it on top of them. If you sort of inconspicuously walk and happen to tread on it, then that's mutter. So long as it's not obvious that you're doing it in order to trap them, you just happen to be going for a walk. Even if it's your intention to do so, that would be mutter. And lastly, to trap the nochash, the snake, merely because you want to play with it, then that would be osa. That is the end of Mishnah Zayin.